Welcome to the Beysidejewel.
깜깜하게 움직이지 않는 조그만
Hello, you guys. Assalamu alaikum. Welcome back to the Beysidejewel. Hope you guys are doing well. And today I'm going to bring something I think we all should know. Because it appears to me that this is something that was fairly hidden from history, period. You pretty much had to dig and research for it. But apparently it seems like they don't want you to know this. But Brother Bay here is going to bring something to you that a lot of you don't know. As a matter of fact, the details I didn't know. The details I didn't know. And I knew bits and pieces, but we're going to go into detail with this, and it's going to be a pretty interesting discovery to some of you. Okay, what this is all about is, you guys, we were not the only ones that the Europeans put in slavery. Pretty much at the same time. Or actually, it was Irish slave trade. Irish slave trade. I'm going to give you a summary of what I've learned. And then we're going to go over a document together. I'm going to share this document. I'll read it, and it'll give you more detail. And I think it's something that we all should know. We should know this stuff. But they didn't teach us this in school. No, this was hidden. So Brother Bay found it. I did the research into it. And I'm going to give you a summary. Okay? So the summary starts like this. Back in 1601, it was England, because apparently at this time there was no British Empire. So the English went over to Ireland, and they proceeded to pretty much do the same thing to the Irish as they did to us. Maybe not as gruesome, even though many claim it was just as gruesome, But they went over to Ireland, and they started genociding the Irish people. And they conquered the Irish military. Then what they started doing was taking the people's land. They were taking the Irish, that even the Irish, they pretty much did the same thing to our people, because it was our people that was in that particular land. This is why, they don't tell you this history, but our people that was over there, to my knowledge, were pygmy people. That was their land. And so after they started genociding the pygmy people, they started, fooling around, teasing them, calling them leprechauns, because pygmy people they're about 4 feet tall, about 4 feet tall, pygmy people. So this is where the leprechaun comes from Ireland. Remember the little green guy with the leprechaun hat? Yeah, they were making fun of pygmy people. But anyway, so England proceeded to genocide the Irish people. Yeah, they were prejudiced against Irish people, because Irish people also had they had a culture and a religion of their own. And I think it was pretty much Catholic is what they were, Catholic. And they started genociding these people. And they were just really taking over their land. And the part that tripped me out the most was, after they conquered their military, which to my recollection was no more than 30,000 military men. They conquered them and they started shipping them to guess where? If you said America, you got it. They started shipping them to America, particularly down in South America. And they were selling these Irish people to the English planters that had went there and colonized and started their crop and their plantations as well. So they were selling them to these planters down there, to the English planters down in South America. And they also started raping the women, and they were shipping the women to different parts of Barbados and Jamaica. So, could this be why, you have this complex down there with the light skin against the dark skin? Because what they were doing, they were raping the women, and after a while, they were making them breed with the Africans that were down there, and particularly Jamaica and Barbados. So, you guys, this is a part of history that I just recently learned, but this was an Irish slave trade. And guess what? It lasted as nearly as long as ours did, because this was in 1601, and they didn't come up out of slavery until 1839. Now, keep in mind that originally, when they were shipping these Irish people to the South Americas, they were supposed to be indentured servants. So after a period of time, they would release these slaves, the Irish people. This is what they were originally supposed to do. But apparently after a while, they made a law where the Irish could not be indentured servants anymore. They were straight up slaves. And to my recollection, they were starting to integrate these slaves, women, with African men down there because they wanted more slaves. So, this is just a little summary of what I remember of that particular event. But yeah, they were hanging some of these Irish people, and they were setting them on fire too. They were barbaric. So you see, I think what they did was, I think they got their system developed mostly by the time it came to us with the Atlantic slave trade. They perfected this shit. This is why they were so gruesome. They had all these years of practice on the Irish people. But I'm going to read this document, and we're going to go over this document together. If you care to get more into details, I'm going to pull up this document and I'm going to read it for you guys. Okay, so stay tuned. All right, you guys. Brother Bay is back. And I know I need some reading specs to get into this the way I want to, but the sun is, I can't find them. I can't find my glasses, y'all. But the sun is beaming out here, so I think these will help somewhat. But we're going to get into this document, and I hope you guys enjoy this, because you're definitely, if you don't know about this, you're definitely going to learn something. This is the Irish slave trade that happened in 1601. Check this out. Okay, y'all. This article comes from the newsletter of Political Education Committee, otherwise known as PEC, American Ireland Education Foundation, 54 South Liberty Drive. The Siege of Kinsale, or Battle of Kinsale, was the ultimate battle in England's conquest of Gaelic Ireland, commencing in 1601, near the end of the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, and at the climax of the 9 Years' War, a campaign by Hugh O'Neill, Hugh Roe O'Donnell, and other Irish lords against England. Okay, the Irish slavery in America. To Hell or Barbados, a book written by Sean Collingham, reveals the truth behind the Irish who were sold into slavery. After the Battle of Kinsale in 1601, this is when they were battling the military, okay? The English had captured some 30,000 military prisoners, and this created an official policy of banishment or transportation. James II encouraged selling the Irish as slaves to the planters and settlers in the New World colonies. First recorded sale of Irish slaves was to a settlement on the Amazon River in 1612. In 1625, an official proclamation ordered for Irish prisoners to get rounded up and sold as slaves. Slaves was to a settlement on the Amazon River in 1612. In 1625, an official proclamation ordered for Irish prisoners to get rounded up and sold as slaves to English planters. Between 1629 and 1632, a large number of Irish men and women were sold to Guiana. Some of these words, you guys, I'm going to have a hard time with, so bear with me. Antigua and Montserrat. By 1637, approximately 69% of the population of Montserrat were Irish slaves. Negro slaves had to be purchased 20 to 50 pounds of sterling. Irish slaves were captured and sold for 900 pounds of cotton. The Irish became the largest source of slave for English slave traders. From 1641 to 1652, over 550,000 Irish were killed by the English, and 300,000 more were sold as slaves. As more men were transported, leaving their wives and children behind, they too were also rounded up and sold as slaves. Irish women and their daughters were of lighter complexion than the black slaves and were considered more valuable as domestic slaves. In 1649, Cromwell began a campaign of terror on Ireland. All captured soldiers were transported to be sold into slavery. A few months later, in 1650, 25,000 Irish were sold to planters in St. Kitts. During the 1650s, over 100,000 Irish children, generally from 10 to 14, were taken from their parents and sold as slaves in West Indies, Virginia, and New England. In fact, more Irish were sold as slaves to the American colonies from 1651 to 1660 than the total existing free population of the Americas. That's what they say. In 1652, Cromwell ordered that the Irish were to be transported overseas, starting with 12,000 Irish prisoners sold to Barbados. The infamous to hell or to Connacht proclamation was issued on May 1st on 1654, confiscating all Irish held lands, and the native Irish were to relocate west of the Shannon or to be transported to the West Indies. To expedite the process, in 1657, the law was further classified to read, those who fail to transplant themselves into Connaught or Clare within 6 months shall be attainted of high treason, are to be sent into America or some other parts beyond the seas. Those who banish return are to suffer the pains of death as felons by virtue of this act, without benefit of clergy. It was not a crime to kill any Irish, as soldiers were encouraged to do so. Okay? By the slave trade proved too profitable to ignore. As a result, 52,000 Irish were sold to Barbados and Virginia alone. Another 30,000 Irish men and women were taken prisoners and ordered, transported, and sold as slaves. In 1656, Cromwell council of the state ordered that 1,000 Irish girls and 1,000 Irish boys be rounded up and taken to Jamaica and sold as slaves to English planters. Still, there were no more, as little record was kept on this activity. Few people realize from 600 to 1699, more Irish were sold as slaves than Africans. Quite interesting. Servant indentures were mutual agreements whereby a servant will sell a period of time in exchange for passage. In return, he would receive housing, food, clothing, and usually a piece. Don't know what happened to that part, but I'm guessing that it's probably a piece of land. Yeah. Okay, you guys, that's what it is. A piece of land at the end of the term of service. Ain't that a bitch? But the Irish were more often an exception. Sometimes the slavery was not recorded as such or not recorded at all. But from 1625, the Irish were sold with a purpose as slaves. There were no indentured agreements, no protection, no choice. They were captured and turned over to shippers to be sold for their profit. Profit were huge, 900 pounds of cotton for an Irish slave. Everyone in the slave trade from Ireland made a profit, except the slaves. Irish and African slaves were housed in the same facilities and were the property of the plantation owner. The planters had to pay more for a black slave African Negroes cost generally about 20 to 50 pounds of sterling compared to 900 pounds of cotton, about 5 pounds of sterling. For an Irish, blacks were treated better. This is what they say. The Pope of all Rome Catholics were considered an enemy of God and civilization. Any infraction was treated harshly and severely. Many Irish died as a result of their treatment. It was not a crime to kill an Irish slave, merely a loss. However, Parliament saw the need to enact certain protection for slaves in 1677. The Parliament passed an act to regulate the treatment of slaves on British plantations, designating authorized punishment to include whipping and brandings for slaves, offense against a Christian. Irish Catholics were not considered Christians, so these protections did not apply. How you like that? The planters began breeding the Irish women because it was profitable. Children of slaves were themselves slaves. Planters then began to breed Irish women with African men to produce more slaves who had lighter skin and brought a higher price. In 1681, legislation was passed forbidding the practicing of mating Irish slaves with African slave men for the purpose of producing slaves for sale. Not out of moral consideration, but because slave traders saw it was competition, maybe. Okay. In 1691, following the Battle of the Boney and the defeat of King James, the Irish slave trade had a fresh supply of captives ready to transport. For the next 100 years or more, the policy remained with transportation of Irish men, women, and children to be sold into slavery, a policy of ethnic cleansing. Finally, in 1839, a bill was passed to England forbidding these activities, bringing the Irish slave trade to an end.
There it is. That was a document of Irish slavery in America. Something that I just recently discovered. I hope you learned something, because I certainly did, and I was quite surprised to get the details that I actually gotten. So, to me, this is something that, they don't talk about. And they want to make a black history. Well, this is history that I'm bringing to the front line for you to know that they keep in the shadows. So, hope you enjoyed it. And until next time, you guys, Brother Bay here, we're going to sign off. Assalamu alaikum.